Akademiks can't ride no wave. I'm gonna bring in my dogs, honestly. They just keep like barking. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but they just keep barking. Okay, I do want y'all to hear. Okay, so there's some quick updates going on with this Celeste Rivas and is it Rivas or Rivera's? I keep fucking up her name. They have a timeline of what they believe happened here, people. They're saying that they don't know how she died, but they believe that she was died, frozen, unfrozen, dismembered, moved to somewhere where I think they were contemplating burying her, moved back, and then dumped into the Tesla, right? Give me 1 second. I'm going to play this, but I'm going to go grab my dogs real quick, chat. All right, give me a second.
Raises a whole new set of questions about what we can expect next. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. By the way, before we get more into this, just gotta say something real quick. Have you ever left a meeting and thought to yourself, what did we just talk about for the last 30 minutes, hour? I have been there a lot of times, not ashamed to say it, but that can be a thing of the past with this. Claude Notepad, okay? This tiny AI-powered device, it's more than just a recorder. It's like a hands-free AI secretary that you can carry with you every day. So whether it's meetings, interviews, brainstorms, the Notepad doesn't just catch everything. It also identifies key points, it expands into summaries, and it delivers role-specific action items to keep your team aligned. And the best part is Ask Claude, because instead of going through all these hours of meeting notes, you can ask it to hunt for answers. Like, hey Claude, what hot trials do we talk about covering next year? And Claude will pull up that conversation. So if you're over messy notes, it's time to try Claude Notepad. Right now you can get 20% off with code SIDEBAR20. Just click the link below or scan the QR code. Major update in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez death investigation. So this comes after we reported last week how TMZ claims that they spoke with the LAPD and they allegedly said that an arrest is not imminent in this case. And it was also reported that singer David is being considered a suspect. There's been a little bit of back and forth on whether this is strictly a death investigation or officially a homicide investigation. The LAPD hasn't labeled this a homicide investigation per se. And of course, this comes as this 14-year-old girl was found in the trunk of a car allegedly registered to David back on September 8th out in LA. But the back and forth on this has been really confusing because the LAPD had come out at one point and said they weren't sure if there was a crime beyond concealment of the body. And we were all waiting for the official LA County Medical Examiner's results and toxicology reports to come in. To be clear, there have been no arrests in connection with Celeste's death. But now let's talk about what just happened. According to TMZ, sources close to the investigation tell them that Celeste's body was frozen, that it had actually been thawed out, that she had been decapitated, that her limbs had been severed and cut into pieces. Look, I'm sorry I have to say this, okay? I'm sorry I'm mentioning this, but this is the reporting. I hope it's not true. And I will add this, though, if it is true, the ME potentially can't determine a cause of death. Again, this is all according to TMZ. And actually, talking the ME, KTLA reported that Celeste's case number is 2025-14252. And when searching that number on the ME's page online, it had listed the cause of death as deferred, pending additional tests. However, now, according to KTLA, that has changed on Friday. When you plug in that case...
Okay, the girls are in. Okay, so, again, to kind of, recenter this, we're trying to figure... This has become... And again, I know I brought up jokingly Dexter before, but it's kind of... The medical examiner supposedly has been thrown for a loop by this whole situation. They can't figure out how this young lady died. They have evidence that potentially her body was being moved around, but they don't know in what state. They know it was dismembered. We don't know what that means, but supposedly she was, they call it decapitated, which means her head was removed and looked like, they're trying to figure out these other things. What the hell would you need to be able to dismember a body? You need some power tools, right? What about all the blood? If the body, they're saying conflicting things. They're saying it was in such bad shape that the medical examiner cannot identify a cause of death, yet they said it was refrigerated. Well, refrigeration would kind of stop that decomposition situation of the corpse. So we really don't know what's going on. We've now seen TMZ has ran the story to say, yes, the body was frozen at some point, and apparently they're now looking at a Airbnb that the dude had. They're saying there was a freezer that was there that could have been big enough to hold the body. Now, this is just a regular Sub-Zero fridge. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like one of them big freezers that you usually see in movies that you can just open up like this and it just sits on the ground. So, you think that he put her body in here? Like, it's like a luxury kitchen. Like, all right, bruh, like, let's make some omelets. Like, open the other side, you get the eggs, you get this. Yo, let's get some ice for, you know what I mean? Definitely for the alcohol. Oh, shit, there's a body up in the freezer. Holy. Like, I don't know, right? Like, what are your thoughts? Look, they're saying Singer Davis, suspect in a presumed homicide of Celeste Rivas, I gotta remember the name is Rivas, not Rivera, had a large freezer large enough to store a body. A relevant fact since her body had apparently been frozen for months. So now they're claiming that her body was frozen for months. So check out this photo of the rental home that was taken a few years ago, and it shows the kitchen had a KitchenAid. Okay, so it's not Sub-Zero, it's KitchenAid refrigerator and freezer. The freezer side, which would be the left side of the appliance, has a height of around 74 inches with a width around 14 inches and has a depth of roughly 27 inches. The temperature can get as low as minus 8 degrees Fahrenheit. She was 5'3" and 120 pounds, and they broke the story that her body was found in a bag in the Tesla. It was decapitated and the arms and limbs were cut off. So it could have fit in the freezer. If the shelving inside had been removed, by the way, a torso for a 5'3" woman falls between 15 and 17 inches long. Now, you know what's also confusing? Like, so they're saying that they froze her body, but they might have had the body in the Tesla trying to bring it somewhere, and they brought it to some remote forest area, but they never tried to bury it. Or maybe they did bury parts. Maybe they were trying to slowly bury and scatter parts of this body. And now they've said that this guy David is now a suspect, but they're saying he's not the only suspect, which means they're actually saying that he has had help in maybe not only the murder, but the destroying, moving, and trying to get rid of the body. And so, mind you, we don't know if police have zeroed in on the freezer, but as first reported, the body was partially frozen when it was found. That's also interesting. If the body was partially frozen, now remember, if the body is frozen, what happens to those cells, even if it's completely, and I hate to say this word, thawed out, the freezing effect of what happens to your cells will always be able to be detected, even like a year later. By the way, if you ever think about what's that shit they call again? It's like cryogenics. You ever see the science of where people want to freeze their organs or freeze their body in state and come back at a later time, right? Freeze a body to come back later on. I think what is that called? Cryopreservation. Like I've watched like little documentaries on it. Now here's chronics, right? So here you go.
Frozen with
and I know I'm getting like scientific on y'all, but like just chill.
Hope of being brought back to life in the future. Sounds like science fiction, huh? This is legally declared dead. But how can someone who's dead be brought back to life?
Okay. And the thought behind is that, as technology becomes better in the future, you'd be able to freeze people to potentially treat them or somehow bring back life at a different point, right? And even some people who are alive, like the more advanced part of this science is that people who are alive would be like, hey, I want to live 100 years from now. They could freeze you and almost kind of like, I don't know how they harness like your soul and spirit, but technically or not technically, like hypothetically, they would bring you back because since your body would be frozen, it wouldn't be deteriorating, this and third, it wouldn't need certain type of sustenance, and they could just bring it back at a later time. Here's the problem with this whole thing and this whole study and this part of science is that The major problem in doing that is what freezing a human body does is that your blood cells it turns those cells into like an oval shape that fucks it up for life. And even when you thaw it out, you're not getting the same person. It's not really conducive for life afterwards. So I'm using that science, or what I know about that science, which is one of the major hurdles in this entire study, to go back to this Celeste thing, meaning that when a body is frozen, no matter if you find it unfrozen, you could do science to detect if it was frozen based on the shape of the cells. You get what I'm saying? That's why I'm not trying to bring out the science fiction, but I'm just trying to tell you, right? So when they said that they found the body, but it was partially frozen, that's shocking to me. If it's partially frozen, this is in LA. LA is pretty much a decently hot place. The body must have been, if they're really saying frozen, that means the body must have been put in the car like a day or two before, right? But if by them saying frozen, they're saying they could determine the body was frozen at a point, maybe not frozen at the moment it was found, because why would the body stink and reek that bad? And by the way, remember, it was supposedly there for like a couple weeks with the rancid smell. That's how it got found. It's no way a body is going to be like, there's no refrigerator in a Tesla fucking frunk. Was it in the frunk or was it? Yeah, I forgot where it was. Anyway, I don't think they mean that the body was frozen in the car. I think they, in them analyzing the body, it was frozen at some point. You get what I'm saying? That's why I brought up the cryonic stuff, because freezing a body alters some of the anatomy of those cells. Okay? Okay. All right. So yeah, and they're saying by the way, look at this. They're saying frozen what is this? There's also a video showing David in the house, not his rental, with an appliance box next to him. The box appears to be a convertible chest / freezer with a removable storage basket. It has a capacity for 7 cubic feet. By the way, the last video of hers is from September. We don't know if this freezer has any connection to this case, but the timing is off. Remember, authority says David went to a remote area in spring of 2025. That's where they believe the body was dismembered. So one source with knowledge tells TMZ one theory is David, an accomplice who is also a suspect, may have taken the body there, dismembered it, and returned it to LA, where it sat in a freezer for months. If that were the case, why did the body end up in his Tesla? Just various theories. And say he was no longer staying at the house because he was on tour. Other people were staying at the home and they could have discovered the body. Again, this is just one theory, but we're told that LAPD is methodically putting together a timeline to determine what happened to her. So they're saying that, like, maybe the body was inside this freezer. They moved it out the freezer to put it in a Tesla because he's on tour, and maybe other people are coming into this house and they want them to open the fridge like, oh shit, let me get some, let me get a frozen burger. I'm like, oh, the fuck? This is a body up in this junk, And then this supposedly is a freezer. He bought a standalone freezer. And now keep in mind, she's already 5'3". You cut off the head and I guess the limbs. I know they said the hands were removed, but was her feet removed? They said her body had been apparent frozen for months. Yeah, the arms and the limbs were cut off. So I'm guessing limbs have got to be here. So if it's only her torso, that would be able to fit in like a standalone fridge like this. Also, why would you buy a fridge like this if, let's say that you're staying in this Airbnb? It's a nice ass Airbnb with a nice ass refrigerator. Why would you need another freezer, right? Interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. And also, if you brought it to this remote location in the forest to dismember it, why not bury it? Or why come back with it at all? This just seems really odd.
Number, all the fields are now empty. So KTLA has speculated whether that means a determination has been made in this case, or whether there has been a security measure been put in place upon official release to the public. And sources apparently telling TMZ, though, that the cause and manner of death could ultimately be listed as undetermined. Now, if that's true, it raises a ton of questions, and it may explain some of the confusion.
Now, here's the thing. And maybe I'm a little bit more morbid than I actually thought I was, because I see some people like, yo, whoa, you're getting too much into this next topic. I watch Dexter a lot. I just do. So the thing about death, right? They could, for example, if she died of asphyxiation, somebody choked her, right? Because that's depriving that person of air, right? If the neck is still there, you're gonna see there's gonna be some abrasions by the neck. Well, I guess her hands isn't there. Usually you look under her fingernails, because if somebody's choking, you try to fucking grab them or whatever the fucking their skin could go under their nails or whatever. But I guess there's no hands. However, if she dies by choking or loss of air, or even like by drowning, right? The nature of the last blood pumped through the body through the heart, because the heart pumps body all throughout. If you do a test on that blood, and granted, if there's still blood in the body, I mean, if they've dismembered this, like I would imagine they would drain the body at some point. If there's still blood somewhere in that torso, you could see if it's not as oxygenated as if that person was taking actual breaths. So you could tell if they were pretty much almost choked. If it was a blunt force, death, some hit in the head and whatever, or shot in the head or whatever the case is, there's certain type of injuries where your brain as a trauma response immediately dispenses these like hormones like throughout the body to almost like signal to the rest of your body that, hey, this is a traumatic thing that's happening here, and all the resources of the body almost kind of like cater to it. And I think you still should be able, I guess I'm going on why they can't determine cause of death. Like that's the crazy part. Like it should be a little bit like you have somewhat of the body, right? Like you could tell if certain type of cuts are done post-mortem versus it was done before the person got killed. You know what I mean? Because the way how if you cut skin or you cut through flesh when someone's dead versus alive, it reacts very differently. So I'm really confused why either they know what's going on, or maybe this David nigga is on some serial killer shit, or whoever who did it, because how the fuck did y'all do this where the cops are confused on how this person even died? LA has the best medical examiners in the world. I don't know if you guys know that. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of them, these medical examiners and pathologists, they go out there to get the big bucks, because a lot of them end up working on these Hollywood, say it's Michael Jackson or whoever the hell else that might die out there, and they kind of become famous off of that. You know what I mean? Like, you're the person who did the autopsy of whatever. So the medical examiners out there are really good, right? Really fucking good. So if we're talking about a place where you got some of the best medical examiners in the world, and they can't figure out how this young woman died, it's kind of crazy. This shit is a little spooky to me, chat.
Confusing elements of this case.
Chat, I am intrigued a little bit. I watch a lot of Dexter, my nigga. I watch a lot of Dexter. You get what I'm saying?
Look, it should also be noted
and also, like, obviously I'm never like saluting whoever would do this crime is like fucking heinous and disgusting, but like you also kind of have to be a little bit not only alarmed, but like, whoa, like in awe of like, how did this motherfucker know how to do all this shit? Where you have done, obviously it's still dumb because they caught the body in a fucking car in the dude's name, but the death and subsequent dismemberment might be something where this guy's a little bit sick, and he was already into some type of shit, because he's kind of one step of the cops right now. One step ahead, I mean.
TMZ is reporting that in the rental property in the Hollywood Hills, which was near where that Tesla was parked on Bluebird Avenue, seemingly abandoned before it was towed away to the tow yard and Celeste Body was found inside, in that...
Yeah, I'm also still very confused. How does your How old was she? 15? How does your 15-year-old daughter disappear? And she's supposedly dead and frozen for months. And you're not over here just like, and maybe they were, and they're not just covering that part. How are you not like, if I was them, I would be at the school. Hey, who was hanging out with my daughter last? Who? Oh, she's dating somebody? David? Who the fuck is that? I would be turning over every stone to figure out where the fuck she is if she's been missing for months. She's missing. She's not showing up to school. What? I don't know. Sounds odd, bro.
Rental property where David had apparently been staying, TMZ claims that if you look at photos from inside that house from a few years ago, there is a large KitchenAid refrigerator freezer. And they go into the dimensions and whether it's possible a mutilated body could fit in there. By the way, a search warrant was executed on that property and reportedly items were seized. But to be clear, this is all speculative, okay? This is all speculative. We're trying to put in the dots here. And you have to wonder if this reporting is true. That body was found in a hot car, right? It was reported that that Tesla had been there for weeks, even
Exactly. It's no way it's frozen.
having been ticketed. So where was the body stored? When was it transferred? And I also have to mention this. TMZ had previously reported, and now is really talking about this, that police may be looking into an alleged trip that David had made to a remote area of Santa Barbara County in the middle of the night months ago in the spring. Spent a couple hours there, apparently. This is a new allegation. TMZ's Harvey Levin saying on his Two Angry Men podcast that he believes, quote, that Santa Barbara trip is the key to this case. Now, a police source told People magazine that...
Now, that trip, if they believe that there was a dismemberment that happened there, I would believe that, and I think police are probably looking for other stuff. That's why they're not giving us updates. They're probably scouring that area. They got, cadaver dogs who are probably sniffing the area trying to find the head. Because I'm guessing, I guess they probably didn't turn over the body to the family to bury at this point. What are you gonna do? Put a body in a casket with no head? Like no head, no arms, no limbs. It's just like a fucking torso. I'm not trying to be graphic here, chat, but like this is kind of like, this is not your regular mill like spin the block, shoot up the spot type of shit. This is like, what type of nigga does this type of stuff, right? So now you start to think, you're like, wow, if the police go to this forest, maybe they buried the head. If they find the head somewhere, right? Maybe they could figure out, oh, she got shot in the head, right? Maybe if they find the limbs, they'd be like, oh shit, she got injured here and it ripped through one of the, arteries that was really important and she bled out. But even then, the fact that the toxicology, we haven't heard nothing about it, it almost tells me the body was drained. It tells me that body did not have the adequate amount of fluids that you would necessarily see in a corpse, even up to like 20 days deceased, that you could take and test to see if, was she given drugs? Was she sedated? Did she, obviously, let's not assume that she did anything willingly, but did somebody give her coke? Did somebody give her some fentanyl? This is an overdose. We don't know nothing. So it's like, damn, what the fuck? This is kind of crazy. Somebody said her head was never missing? Well, her head was never... Well, they said decapitated. Then they said the arms and limbs are missing, which your arm is a limb. But when you say arms and limbs, I'm just going to assume it means arms and legs. Something is just a torso. Then TMZ is doing the math on how a torso on a 5'3" girl would fit in the fridge. I'm sorry, I know some of y'all are like creeped out by this, but I'm really on some like, what the fuck?
While LAP...
Then you got to think about this too. This motherfucker was having hearses pull up to his shows, and he was bringing in a casket to the shows. So maybe this might be a sick guy. Like, I would think it's a serial killer. Like, there's no way it's a one-off if you're that fascinated with death that you also possibly kill your girlfriend. You keep her torso around. You're scattering her body parts. What? This is kind of crazy. The dude was having chat like, look, David, he was having hearses. He was having hearses. Oh, she was laid to rest. Okay, cool. So she was laid to rest. But he was having hearses pull up. Look, he was having hearses pull up. Look, this is in his meet and greet. This dude had a fascination with death, chat. It's not just outside the realm to me that this dude was really into some really morbid things and probably knew a little bit more about a guy who was doing this. He probably also knows a little bit about embalming a body. He probably knows about, draining the body of. He got to know some shit. The nigga got caskets pulling up to his goddamn meet and greet game.
Now, why the fuck would the artist do that?
I love you from the after.
Bro, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Like, come on, bro. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, something's going on. Something is legit going on. We find a body of his shit, dismembered. He could have clearly buried her. Also, here's the thing, too. A guy who's into this type of stuff, nigga could have, well, obviously, it would be illegal for any funeral home to cremate her. But I'm saying that if he's so much into death like that, bro, he could have fucking got rid of the body. Why did he keep the body? Why did he keep it in that dismembered form? Why would you keep it in a car that you own? Why, if you know this much, and I gotta imagine he knows this much, why would you put it in a hot car that's going to be parked on a random street? You know it's going to start decomposing even faster. Now it's going to smell. They're going to figure this out. What the hell is going on, chat?
PD haven't been able to pinpoint exactly when Celeste died. Quote, springtime is the closest we've come to determining the time of her death, not before.
What in the fuck? They could only narrow her time of death to a season? What? Nah, she died in spring. What? Nick, you can't even tell us what month? What week? Nope, spring.
Or then. Again, this is unidentified source, no independent verification of that, particularly from the LAPD.
Most of this is TMZ reporting, I will say.
Go any further, before I go into the next development, let me just say this real quick. Whether this is true or not about what happened to Celeste, this must be incredibly painful for Celeste's family to even hear this theory, to hear this reporting. And I don't want that to get lost in all of this. Yes, there's a large community who is. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on. First time you and I had a.
We'll listen like 3 more minutes of this and we're going to move on, chat.
Chance to talk about this case. This is a big development. Talk to me about what you make of this reporting that Celeste's body may have been dismembered, decapitated, and frozen, because those are very specific actions that are not so easy to do.
Exactly. Thank you.
Well, Jesse, great to be with you. And I think there are a couple of things that maybe might help put this into buckets that will make a lot more sense for those who are listening to us today. And that is breaking the, for lack of a better word right now, crime scenes or the event locations down into 3 kinds of locations. First being that initial contact site where David and Celeste may have come in contact with each other. Was there grooming involved? What led up to that relationship happening? And we're seeing reports going back even as much as April of 2024 of Celeste being reported missing. So when we think about the victimology or who she is, was she ungovernable at some degree? It sounded like she was a really good kid that was really working hard and she came from a really strong family. We may learn different things that point different directions, and that's not victim blaming. It's just talking about kind of the storyline behind the victim. But we have that initial contact site where these two come together in space and time and somehow become an item and start seeing each other. And there are reports that they were seeing each other, that she was regularly coming over to David's house there in Hollywood Hills. But then we've got wherever this event happened, whether it was an overdose, a suicide, an accident, or she died by natural causes from some goofy event that happened with her body. We don't know the answer there. We're learning more and we will continue to learn more, but that becomes the place where this happened, or maybe where she was murdered. That's the crime scene. And then we've got things that make really good sense to me. It's horrible to talk about, but you talk about the decapitation and the disorganization that appears to be going on in this crime crime. And all of a sudden it makes sense that we're hearing now that there are frost burns and freezer burns, things that would indicate that that body not only had been dismembered, but that had been frozen. And if it's that refrigerator freezer in the house or a freezer in the garage or some other place, it makes sense if they were so disorganized in either trying to hide her body or hide a crime that they may try to dismember her and freeze her there.
Let me get into that. And just so everyone's clear, the LAPD hasn't confirmed what exactly the relationship between Celeste and David was. There have been unconfirmed reports that the two were in a relationship. There's alleged images and video of them together. Again,
part of me thinks that they got to be allowing this guy to roam free. If not on getting him for murder, but they could have gotten him for, you know, the improper dealing or handling of a corpse. They could have had arrested him for, you know, if the body was found in his vehicle. It's like someone finding a gun in your vehicle, right? Like, shit, they're gonna charge you with gun possession, right? Like, they found a body that's beheaded, that doesn't have hands or limbs. It's like, bruh, like, you can't charge a nigga for that. If not that, like, isn't there enough talking to friends and all these other people of maybe charging them with something with maybe an improper relationship with a minor or something like that? It feels like there's enough for them to hold him. It feels like they must really feel like he's so far ahead of them that they want to keep him on his toes and hopefully he fucks up. They probably got all the shit tapped, and they're probably hoping that, you know, sometimes you'll have some of these guys, they'll return to the crime scene. They'll call somebody, oh shit, I forgot I did leave my shirt in that fucking forest when I was burying this chick. Could you, I need somebody to go to the forest. Remember I buried the head over blah, 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 blah. Go pick that shirt up for me. Maybe they get info that way. That's the only way I could see it. They got to have like 24-hour surveillance on this kid. It's no way they're just like, yeah, we're just going to leave him out free. They arrest people for less. So I think that they're leaving him out there because they're hoping he does something that is trying to help cover up a few loose ends that may still exist. And they're hoping that he fucks up. That helps them get more info on where the fuck he buried the arm, the finger, the fucking elbow, the neck, the head, the feet, wherever, and that they could, you know, cross their T's and dot their I's, right?
You can't say with certainty, but going to the...
Somebody also said this. Somebody says he's going to unalive himself. I was actually thinking that too. Some of these guys aren't the guys who are like, yeah, all right, I'm going to jail for life. Like, some of these guys are like, yo, listen, when the walls are surrounded, I'm going out too. If this is the guy who's obsessed with death, and maybe, I don't know, like, and I'm obviously making crazy assumptions right now, but like, if he's someone who's really obsessed with death, he's really like he's exalting it in his art, which is music. He's bringing caskets, he's bringing hearses, all that type of stuff. He might feel like, yo, the ultimate form of how his story dies is him dying. You get what I'm saying? If any of this is true. So, again, when you leave this guy out here, he might be on some Epstein shit, if you believe Epstein killed himself, right?
Freezer. If you have a body that's recovered in the tow yard that's in a state of thawing, how long did the body have to be frozen for? And I'm sorry to talk in such cavalier, it's just we have to be clinical about this. How long was the body frozen for, and how long could it be out of the freezer if it's still in a state of thawing? I don't even know when the body would have been put in the car, right, for this to happen. But can a body be frozen in such a state that even if you take it out into the heat, into a trunk, it can still be in a state of thawing for quite some time? I mean, do you know that?
Yeah, I'm troubled by that as well. And I wonder if it's some inaccurate reporting or some assumptions that are being made, and then we're kind of dogpiling on the reporting. Right. What seems to be more scientific is that there is evidence that the flesh was freezer burned, that there were marks, and we all understand what that looks like. And again, we've got to keep in mind, this vehicle, if I remember right, was recovered, towed off of the street on September 3rd. She very minutes before that that or hours before, was placed in a frozen state inside of the vehicle. Unless she was somehow preserved in there with ice and other kinds of things, I don't know how she could remain frozen for the 5 days that she sits in the sun baking under a tin roof of a Tesla and still be frozen. So I'm thinking there's probably some inaccuracies there, but we might learn something that really clarifies all of that. But over 5 days, I don't know of anything that would remain frozen for that long without some kind of ice pack or other things to keep it in that condition.
But can the body be in such a state that they don't know what happened to her? You heard me talk the back and forth about the ME. The results apparently haven't come in. There are those who are wondering, okay, well, maybe a security measure is being put in place. Maybe they're trying to prepare the public before they release this information. Or is it going to be undetermined? Can the body be in such a state that they do not know if this is a homicide? They do not know if this is something else. Is that a possibility?
So I think there are a couple of things to consider here. Again, is whether we're premature on what we're trying to theorize on. But what's very clear to me is that during the autopsy and all of the testing that will be done, they're going to be able to determine some things that might lead toward homicide. Broken hyoids, you think back to the old days of looking at just those kinds of criminal cases. Or there may be some toxicology that comes back that says, hey, this individual has a drug introduced that is not consistent with self-introduction of drugs or other things. So maybe they will find a way to say, there are toxicology or physical abnormalities that suggest that this individual was suffocated or strangled or had bones broken. The thing to do things. So there are a lot of things outside of a homicide charge that still need to be considered in a case like this.
This idea of what happened to her, and you couple this with this idea of this alleged Santa Barbara trip, where there's now a theory that perhaps what happened to her happened in this area, this remote area. We don't know for sure. And then you couple this with the reporting that there could be a second suspect who may have helped with the disposal, allegedly. Does that make sense to you? If we're talking about a body that was in this state, if we take it all as true, decapitated, decomposed, dismembered, frozen, is it seem more likely than not then this has to be more than one person involved?
I think it all points to some very strong possibilities in that regard. And frankly, I always look at these cases and say, what makes sense? And you think about it, it does make sense if you're a disorganized criminal who didn't plan something, but things fell apart, or even if it's an accident, quite frankly, Jesse, that you might say, holy cow, I can't have this thing appear under my name.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, hopefully, if they do have suspect number 2 and they're
So there's so many theories going on around this. There's some theories that actually suggest that homie's gay. And if you look at him, I ain't gonna cap with you. Look a little gay to me. They're saying he's gay. And basically, he had a gay lover. And there's a gay lover who's devoted to him that helped him, like, basically cover up this crime. Some people think it's his assistant. I don't know. But they're saying there is another person. And I'm thinking, why the hell would you cover up the crime with this guy, even if you were getting paid? I usually think that even if you employ somebody, they check out at the moment. You're like, hey, could you help me cover up this murder? I'm about to cut my ex-girlfriend's head off and her arms off, and I'm going to put it in a refrigerator. I think that's where they're like, yeah, I think I'm going to go on my break right now. Yeah, I don't think I'm doing this. So they're saying, why the hell? They believe that he had help, right? They believe he had some assistance from someone to help do all this, but I'm asking the question, why the fuck would you help this nigga do all this shit unless you with it?
Interviewing them, they're able to put enough pressure on them to have that person step up and say, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this much. This is what I was asked to do, and point back to maybe some behaviors that led up to that second person being involved. If that second person was involved from the get-go, then of course they're going to be trying to impeach that person's interview and confession or admission with digital evidence and other kinds of pieces of evidence. And we take all that forensic evidence and physical evidence and eyewitness accounts and confessions and admissions, and we start bringing them all together and either use it to collaborate and corroborate what this number two person is saying, or to frankly impeach them.
So let me ask you this. You mentioned conversations, right?
Okay. I think we're going to leave it there for now, but this mystery continues. We're trying to figure out what the hell went on. Okay. All right. Rest in peace to Celeste Rivas. And I ain't going to lie to you, man. Nigga got Hello Kitty in his bio, a grown-ass man. Anyway. Okay. Let's see what else is going on. Suggest some topics, people. We got a packed house in here today. 13,000 strong. Got to get back to our average. Usually we're around like 15,000 people. We got 5,000 on the Academy. We have 5,600 on King Akademiks. And we have 1,000 on Rumble. And I believe, how many do we? No, not Rumble. I mean on Kick. And on Rumble, we got about 1,000. All right, cool. All right, bet.